It's a cold November night. Outside, leaves dance in the air and tumble over the grass, now lost in the shadows. But inside, your fire is lit, and the room is awash in a warm, golden autumnal glow. Perfect. I'm Dr. William Lester, coming to you from the studio of Blackwater Media in the great city of Atlanta. Welcome to November Nightmares 3. Growing up, we used to visit my maternal grandmother and great-grandmother for Thanksgiving. My great-grandmother, being of Seminole blood, used to tell me stories passed down to her from generations past. One in particular used to always frighten me. In ancient Seminole folklore, there is a vampire-like creature called a stikini, or man-owl. Likewise, terrifying stikini legends are widespread among the Creek people. Initially, the stikini were believed to be evil witches who transformed themselves into undead, giant, owl-like monsters. Technically dead, but constantly reanimated, they could spend their nights seeking human hearts to consume. And hearing the terrifying cry of a stikini is an omen of impending death. Many Native Americans who know the stikini stories avoid mentioning this bizarre creature openly. Usually, only certain medicine people tell about the stikini without putting someone at risk of turning into one. By day, the creature appears as an ordinary human. The stikini does terrible things at night. It vomits up its internal organs, hangs them in a tree, or hides them elsewhere to prevent animals from eating them. Then, it can change its appearance into a great horned owl. In this disguise, it flies out, searching for a sleeping person to prey upon. It removes the still beating heart from its victim by pulling it out of its mouth, and then takes the heart back to its home. It cooks the heart in an enchanted pot and eats it in secret. The stikini needs to consume one human heart each night. Ancient people believed there might be a way to get rid of the creature, but it wasn't very easy. At first, people would have to find the organs hidden by the stikini while the creature was still hunting and destroy it before dawn, guaranteeing the monster's death. Also, sunlight was disastrous for the stikini, who had not turned back into human shape. It could be done with some specially chosen arrows decorated with owl feathers, then ritually blessed and dressed with sacred herbs. When the stikini returned to its lair to consume its organs, one could fire upon it with a magic arrow, and this would be the only time the creature was vulnerable. The creature was a dangerous shapeshifter, able to transform into any animal it wants, but it preferred to perform as an owl. Again, by day, it takes on the form of a human being. It undergoes a physical and even mental transformation. It lives its daily life as human, socializes within the community, and mimics human behavior, ideally without exposure. The creature's true origin is camouflaged, and there is no way to reveal it. The stikini folklore is widespread and popular among many Native American groups. Though the shape-shifting evil creature originates in Seminole lands, many legends and stories about this creature have circulated over the years in swampy regions of New Jersey and Michigan. Anyway, I thought you might find this all interesting, if not just a tad terrifying. And also, I'd like to wish you all a very haunted Thanksgiving. Burial Hill is one of the oldest burial sites in the United States, with sailors buried in mass graves and devilish, imp-like creatures roaming the grounds. On the National Register of Historic Places, Burial Hill has been in use since the 1620s, when the first pilgrims started to lay their dead to rest on the grounds. Many Mayflower passengers are buried there, including Governor William Bradford and William and Mary Brewster. The last burial took place as recently as 1957. The earliest grave markers were made of wood, and many did not stand the test of time, leaving plenty of grave sites unmarked. Known as one of the most haunted places on the South Shore, Burial Hill is the final resting place of over 2,500 people. One such tragic instance filled the grounds here with bodies of the dead. Let me lay the scene for you. It's the day after Christmas in 1778. Frigid weather is settling down into Massachusetts, and the crew of the ship General Arnold decides to seek refuge from the icy waves in Plymouth Harbor. Their efforts are in vain when the ship runs up onto a sandbar just northwest of the breakwater and begins to leak. More than 100 sailors, then soldiers of the Revolutionary War, are forced onto the deck where the frozen waves pummel them. Captain James McGee tells the crew to put rum into their shoes to prevent frostbite, but many sailors accept their fate and drink the rum instead, frostbite and hypothermia kicking in almost instantaneously. Locals of Plymouth were unable to assist the now freezing crew as the waters around the boat were turning to solid ice. When the townspeople were able to come aboard almost 2 whole days later, they found over 70 sailors dead and frozen. Some were clutching the brigantine ship ropes, others were embracing each other. Their bodies were brought upon the shore and buried in a 60-foot wide mass grave located right at Burial Hill. And now fast forward 240 some odd years later, Burial Hill today is still frequented by the spirits of these forlorn sailors. Visitors and paranormal investigators describe Burial Hill as heavy and hostile. Reports rush out of the graveyard of full-body apparitions, disappearing silhouettes, and screams from beyond. One woman told of a white silhouette lunging at her face and screaming for her to go away. Another visitor reported seeing a giant figure in deerskin clothing walking up the hill, ignoring the visitor's calls. Eventually, the figure acknowledged him and turned around to face him, only to peer at him with no eyes. There are also stories of a creature who roams the ground of Burial Hill. Many consider it to be a Native American curse, and others aren't so certain. Pukwudgies are original to Wampanoag lore and are small, impish-like creatures who have hairy human features and can appear as well as vanish at will. Known for teasing humans, the Pukwudgies have been spotted by visitors out of the corners of their eyes, appearing as a white figure darting past. What do you believe? Perhaps a visit to Burial Hill will answer any questions or doubts you may have. But do you dare? And to all of you listening, have a very haunted Thanksgiving.
What are you doing here? You ought to be outside with the rest of the kids.
This is where Thanksgiving really begins, isn't it, Edgar?
Well, now, if you're referring to the aroma of roast turkey, I concur.
No, Ray, I was talking about the kitchen. It looks like a real center of hospitality.
Did you say hospitality?
Uh-huh.
That's one thing we're always prepared for around here. Help yourself.
Wouldn't this be a good time for you and your guests to have Coca-Cola, too? Yes, and Coca-Cola is so delicious, so refreshing, so tempting to any guest when you bring out those familiar bottles with tiny beads of moisture running down their frosty sides, assuring you that the Coke inside is really ice cold. And the good, the gracious, the friendly homes of America are always prepared for hospitality, not only on Thanksgiving Day, but every day all the year around, no matter who comes to call or who happens to drop in. And one of the easiest, simplest, and surest ways in the world to be prepared for hospitality is to have plenty of Coca-Cola in your refrigerator, ice cold and ready to serve all the time. It's a wonderful way to say to folks, so glad you came. Welcome anytime.
In August of 2005, a group of workmen were hired to do repairs at the Spooner House in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and upon arriving, knocked at the door. A little girl in colonial period costume opened it, which surprised no one, as the more than 262-year-old house had been a museum for over 50 years. They got busy with their task, and soon along came the curator, who, being curious, asked how they got in. The foreman shrugged and said, "The little girl let them in." "What little girl?" the curator asked. The workman led the curator to the room which the little girl had entered, only to find it, as well as the rest of the house, empty. The workman, not used to encountering ghosts in broad daylight, packed it in and left. Now, I don't know about you, but little girl ghosts creep me out. Maybe it's just the leftovers from seeing The Shining years ago. Or hell, it could just be that little girl ghosts are creepy. By all accounts, the ghost of Abigail Townsend is a friendly little spirit and shouldn't frighten anyone. Abigail was a tiny thing when the Spooner family took her into the family home in the mid-18th century. The house itself is one of the oldest houses on one of the oldest streets in America. Plymouth, of course, was founded by the Pilgrims in 1620, and today bills itself as America's hometown. Built about 1749 on North Street, just one street over from Leyden Street, where according to tradition, the Pilgrims built their settlement, 5 generations of Spooners call that 2-story house their home. Originally constructed for the widow Hannah Jackson, the first Spooner to take up residence was a successful businessman and patriot of the American Revolution, Deacon Ephraim Spooner. It stayed in the family until the death of James Spooner in 1954. It was James who willed the house and all its furnishings to be turned into a museum. Today it contains over 200 years of original furnishings, giving one a sense of how life has changed, or perhaps how little life has changed in Plymouth over the past 2 centuries. And perhaps it's haunted by James as well. Music has been heard coming from the house when it was quite empty, and James was well known as a patron of the musical arts. But alas, it's the creepy little kid ghosts that get all the publicity. And so the music is attributed to Abigail. Historically, we do know that Abigail fell victim to a tooth infection, dying in an upstairs room of the Spooner house. There was no penicillin in those days, and the infection spread, and there was nothing to do but try to comfort the little girl in what must have been an agonizing death. Since then, she's been seen periodically, peering from the windows, rustling the bushes along the alley, even occasionally standing at the corner of the house. But more recently, she seems to have become more active. According to Emily Wilcox, a news service writer, a woman who used to live next door to the Spooner house awoke in the middle of the night to find Abigail standing at the foot of her bed. Another writer relates how, on a tour of Plymouth, outside the Spooner house, a woman felt someone touching her shoulder. Turning, she saw a little girl who said, "I have to go now," and promptly vanished. The group was amazed at the special effects, until the tour guide assured them that there were no special effects. There have been bizarre experiences at the Spooner house. Lights have been spotted going from room to room upstairs at night, such as that of a candle or lantern. And once a tourist asked the guide to shine the light between a crack and some shutters so she might have a look inside. The guide obliged, and the shutters flew open to reveal a woman standing there staring back, who then vanished as the onlookers fled. So that's the story of Abigail. As you contemplate these rather creepy and ghostly anecdotes, remember, as you gather together with friends and family, have a haunted Thanksgiving. You're listening to the Blackwater Media Radio Network, the finest in digital audio entertainment. This is Blackwater Media coming to you from the great city of Atlanta. My mother once worked in a daycare that had taken over the wing of an old school, and the building is notoriously haunted with the ghost of the school's namesake and founder, Colonel Walker. The attic of the building was used as storage for the daycare. Many people reported small, fairly unobtrusive events while being up there. Things like boxes shifting around behind you, drawers opening on the other side of the room while you were there, and curtains suddenly moving, and the feeling of someone else being in the attic with you. But the kids were the most in tune with it. I know lots of kids talked about the, quote, old man at the daycare, which was staffed entirely by women. And I've definitely seen kids react all at once looking to the door as if someone entered the room when no one had. Personally, I always felt as if someone was walking directly behind me whenever I had to go from one end of the hallway to another. And sometimes I would hang out in the kitchen, waiting for my mom to finish up work for the day while I finished my homework or something. I often felt like someone was there with me. I spent a lot of time there, especially in the summer when school was out, helping around the daycare. The most famous piece of evidence of Colonel Walker's ghost was a picture taken at Thanksgiving of all the kids with a big Happy Thanksgiving sign that they'd all made. Right in the back, standing behind the children and looking straight at the camera, is the watery and somewhat blurred face and upper body of an older man. Like you don't even have to squint or tilt your head to make out that it's there. Now I know some dumbass social media debunker will suggest that it could have been some bleed from some other photos or something like that. No, no, and no again. Plus, given all the other evidence, I just think they got the old colonel on camera. So, that's the story. Pretty damn creepy. Anyway, it's that time of year. So I'd like to wish everyone a haunted Thanksgiving. The Navajo believed that death could be a dangerous business. According to the legend of the Chindi, a person's dying breath could contain everything bad or out of harmony about them, and it could become a ghost made of their worst traits. As this Native American ghost story goes, once set loose, the Chindi is said to cause serious harm to the living. After all, they're filled with the most desperate and dire human characteristics, like hatred, jealousy, and greed. They can inflict ghost sickness, which causes hallucinations and death on anyone who crosses their path. Navajo legend maintains that Destroying the deceased's belongings or refusing to say their name could prevent the Chindi from causing serious harm. Alternatively, they tried to ensure that people died outdoors. That way, the vengeful spirit could never disappear in the wind, usually in the form of a dust devil. If the whirlwind spun counterclockwise, that meant the person who died had a great number of evil habits. Some Navajo people also allegedly employed ghost bees to fend off vengeful Chindi spirits. These were often hollowed-out berries or turquoise strung together. But of course, the Navajo couldn't always control where someone died. If a tribal member died indoors, usually in a Navajo dwelling called a hogan, then the living had few options. The Chindi now allegedly controlled the residence, so the living abandoned it. Some people, however, were said to have used the Chindi for their own evil devices. Navajo medicine men could allegedly summon a Chindi to attack someone who had wronged them. Other myths claim that the Navajo witches could poison someone with ghost sickness by taking a piece of the corpse and making it into a bead or powder and then slipping it into someone's food. Given that in modern times most deaths occur indoors, there's no telling how many Chindi could be running amok. As you consider that and all of the horror associated with it, remember to have a haunted Thanksgiving.
Free?
Really? What a great idea. You mean if I collect a total of $300 of my ShopRite register tapes between October 14th and November 21st, I can get a ShopRite Grade 8 turkey free? Wow!
Yes, when you shop at ShopRite between October 14th and November 21st, save your register tapes in our Save a Tape envelope. $300 for a free 10 to 12 pound and $500 for an 18 to 20 pound.
A free Thanksgiving turkey.
Thanks, ShopRite.
For the purposes of this story, I wish to remain anonymous. And I'm not even going to tell you where it happened. What I will tell you is that the city it happened in has a really large Thanksgiving Day parade every year. I'd never been to one of them before, but I always watched it on TV. I went ahead and decided to go one year. And I couldn't find anyone who wanted to go with me. None of my family or friends wanted to spend Thanksgiving standing in the cold, I guess. By the time I had gotten to the parade route, it was really, really packed, and I was worried whether or not I'd be able to see that well. I'm not that tall, but I was able to find a spot behind another group of people that gave me a pretty good view of the parade route. I hadn't been there very long when I noticed someone who, for some reason, just caught my eye. I can't say there was anything unusual about him, really. He was rather big, a little unkempt, but there was just something about him. I, in fact, found myself continuously looking over at him. A few times I was looking at the man, he caught me looking. As most people do when they're caught looking at someone, I quickly looked away each time. This guy was really weird. My curiosity got to me eventually, and I started looking in his direction again. After a while, I could tell that he was getting annoyed, and I resolved to try harder not to look at him, but that just made it worse. It was so goddamn weird. After a while, I looked at the man again and noticed that he was closer to me than he had been before. I didn't think about it at first because we were in a big crowd watching a parade. People moving around in the crowd were in no way unusual. But the more I glanced over at him, the closer and closer to me he kept moving. He was doing it casually, though, making his way around the other people. And he was definitely coming in my direction. What the fuck? To test and see what he would do, I made my own way through the crowd toward the back of the sidewalk. I glanced at him and he immediately switched course to be coming toward me. I was convinced he was coming at me, and I was mildly alarmed. However, I kept telling myself that it wasn't anything to worry about. I was at a parade with thousands of people. If the guy was going to try and hurt me, he'd get caught pretty quickly. I guess that's the problem with assumptions, though. They really don't take all possible scenarios into account. The man did make his way over. There was only one person separating us when he stopped and went back to looking at the parade. I relaxed a bit, but when the man separating us moved, the guy moved up against me. I was about to move before I felt something sharp against my back. This motherfucker had a knife. And probably because we were in a big crowd, he was able to hide the fact that he was holding it up against my back. I mean, to any bystanders, he looked like a guy in a crowd watching a parade. He asked me why I was staring at him over and over, and I was too scared to speak at first. But when he asked again and moved the knife, I apologized, telling him that I didn't mean to stare. I didn't know why I was looking at him. He told me he didn't believe me. And as if it were possible, the shit got even weirder. He asked me how much McMahon was paying me. Now, I had no idea what he was talking about or who the hell McMahon was, but he didn't believe me. He kept pushing on the knife and told me I'd better tell him the truth. I heard my voice crack, and I pleaded to the guy to leave me the hell alone and that I didn't know what he was talking about. I guess my words were somehow heard over the noise of the parade because two guys looked at us and then asked the guy what he was doing. I really thought he was just going to stab me then and there, but I guess he figured that he'd never be able to do it and then get away in this crowd. He slipped the knife away, didn't answer the two men, and took off. They didn't go after him. They just made sure I was all right. To this day, I have no idea who McMahon was, but it doesn't matter. I can tell you this, though. I've been a hell of a lot more careful about not staring at people.